It's Chapter 3, Lesson 6, dealing with multiplying decimals by whole numbers. But before we get into that, let's see what you remember from Lesson 3.5. Find 8 7/10 plus 11 5/10. Is it A, 19 2/10, B, 20 1/10, C, 20 2/10, or D, 21 2/10? And your answer is... So now find 17 15/100 plus 12 96/100. Is it A, 29 11/100, B, 29 95/100, C, 30 6/100, or D, 30 11/100? And your answer is... Now find 11 5/10 minus 4 1/10. So your answer A, 3 4/10, B, 3 6/10, C, 4 4/10, or D, 5 6/10. And your answer is... Now find 34 64/100 minus 27 18/100. So your answer A, 7 22/100, B, 7 46/100, C, 7 72/100, or D, 8 56/100. And your answer is... Evaluate the expression A minus B if A is equal to 105 8/10 and B is equal to 95 9/10. So the answer A, 8 9/10, B, 9 7/10, C, 9 9/10, or D, 10 3/10. And your answer is... Alright, based on the information, how much greater was Michael Young's batting average than Jose Reyes' batting average? Jose Reyes has 273,000 and Michael Young of the Texas Rangers has 331 hundredths. So find the difference between Michael Young's and Jose Reyes. So the answer A, 58,000, B, 55,000, C, 41,000, or D, 28,000. And your answer is... So today we're going to estimate and find the product of decimals and whole numbers. So we're going to find 18 9/10 times 4. So we can use estimation. So we know it's about 76. And then multiply through. And we can also count decimal places. Either way, whether you estimate and or you count decimal places, the answer is still 75 6/10. Alright, so now to find 12 6/10 times 8. Is the answer A, 1 8,000, B, 10 8/100, C, 108/10, or 1008? And your answer is C. So now we're going to find 56/100 times 7. So we can either use estimation, so that we know it's about 3.5, and then when we multiply through using the algorithm, it ends up being 3 92/100. Or we can count decimal places, still go through the same algorithm, and we still end up with the same answer. So whether you use estimation to find where your decimal place goes, or you use counting of your decimal places, you still end up with the same answer. Alright, you try this one. 83/100 times 4. Is the answer A, 332,000, B, 3 32/100, C, 33 2/10, or D, 332? And your answer is... So now what we're going to do is we can annex in some zeros to make this easier to solve. So when we annex in some zeros, what is the product of 4 and 23 thousandths? Is the answer A, 92 thousandths, B, 92 hundredths, C, 9 and 2 tenths, or D, 92. And your answer is? So now we're going to evaluate 5G if G is equal to 91 10,000ths. So what we're going to do is just multiply, replace, substitute G, and then use 4 decimal places, and just multiply it through. And that is our answer. So now we're going to multiply 3 times x, where x is equal to 62 10,000ths. Is the answer A, 186 10,000ths, B, 186 thousandths, C, 1 and 86 hundredths, or D, 18 and 6 tenths? And your answer is? So now we're going to use some mental math to find the product of 3 and 25 hundredths times 100. You can use paper and pencil. This is not the way I recommend going about doing this. Oh my goodness, so much work. Because look where you end up. You've got 2 zeros here and 2 zeros on the end. The decimal place moved over. 1, 2 to the right. 2 zeros, move the decimal place over 2 places to the right, you get the same answer. So the answer is still 325. Here is my preferred method. Move the decimal point to the right, the same number of zeros that are in 100. In this case, because there's only 2 zeros, you go 2 places. I think method 2 is so much faster. You struggle with doing it correct with the mental math, you can go ahead. Doing it with paper and pencil is not wrong, it's just the slow way of doing it. It's like riding a horse to Disneyland versus taking the express train. So find 2 and 4 tenths times 1,000. Is the answer A, 24, B, 240, C, 2,400, or D, 24,000? And your answer is? And that concludes your lesson.